Many aspects of Russian society remain shrouded in mystery, not least its people's UFO and alien encounters. Here are some reported experiences of Russian witnesses who have come forward to describe their strange experiences. Anastasia Erteminka, a Russian documentary channel called The Line, released an online video containing some astonishing revelations about UFO abductions and encounters experienced by its citizens. One evening, Anastasia was right in the centre of the large city where she lives and crossing a busy intersection during rush hour. She claims that suddenly a bright white light shone down onto her from above, followed by what she experienced as the sudden presence in front of her of an extraordinary figure. She described the appearance of the humanoid being as a very tall male wearing a jumpsuit or outfit that looked otherworldly. She immediately thought that the figure was some kind of cosplay character, or toy as she described it, who was sometimes seen on the streets. She noted that this unusual creature had a squeaky metallic voice as it asked Anastasia if she wanted to fly into space. The working mother was at that point rushing home to cook dinner for her children, and her thoughts were completely preoccupied with her tasks ahead. She briefly replied to the being that she would like a trip into space, but that it is very expensive. The being replied that it is not expensive and that he could arrange for her to visit another planet, that she could go whenever she liked, as they were real aliens. Looking at the face of the being, she noticed that its eyes were very large and without pupils. Anastasia said that she continued walking but felt herself drawn up by a beam, whereby she was then on board a cigar-shaped ship. Other beings present placed her seated in front of a screen that showed both the recent past and the future, like some kind of time machine. It was like a review of her whole life. She said that the UFO then headed towards the sea, where she was able to view, through a porthole, the Crimean coastline and the famous Bear Mountain on the Crimean Peninsula. She related that a door opened inside the mountain, revealing what appeared to be an alien base. There was a huge hangar housing a dozen or so flying saucers which were resting on holders or stands, while the aliens who were working on stairs around them appeared to be performing some kind of maintenance or repairs. After this memory, Anastasia was able to recall only vague fragments of her onboard experiences, which included medical experiments and encountering other humans present inside the alien base. She only arrived home late at night and was unable to explain to her family where she had been for the last over 8 hours. Later, undergoing hypnotic regression revealed that parts of her memory had been erased. Kerim Osmanov, a young man from a Central Asian village, claims to have visited alien bases run by so-called tall white extraterrestrials. As someone who has always had prophetic and intuitive gifts, Kerim grew up in a neighbourhood where huge orange spheres fly above house rooftops and creatures wearing silver suits are sighted, wandering beyond the outskirts of the town. Recently, he woke up in the middle of the night having experienced a strange premonition and felt compelled to walk outside to a park which was next to his home. There was a circle-shaped spacecraft that had landed on the ground. Still feeling compelled, although not ordered to do so, he entered a light-filled room inside the craft where he sat down on a chair without feeling any fear. However, there was no one else present on the ship, which silently and smoothly rose into the sky. Kerim says that he looked out of the porthole and viewed planet Earth from the orbiting craft. The capsule in which he was travelling then flew over a rocky landscape of what seemed an alien planet. It began a descent into a crater, plummeting down inside to a seemingly great depth. There he was to observe some fellow humans at the bottom of this cavern. He was able to view this group of humans who were working, perhaps digging. Although he described them as clean, unlike miners, he remarked that they were dressed like primitive people. However, he felt that these humans were living in this place quite happily and peacefully, and not enslaved as is often depicted in fictional shows where some can be seen as exploited by other alien species. Kerim's capsule then rose up and flew out of the cave. Unfortunately, he can't remember any more about this strange event. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit like. It really helps to keep the channel growing. And if you're new here, subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest videos. We've got lots of strange and fascinating stories coming up, and we'd love to have you along for the journey. Vladimir Zamoroka. So-called men in black have been sighted all over the world and are often characterized as strange humanoids who are interested in making contact with UFO witnesses, particularly those who have visited an alien base. The beings often come in twos or threes, dressing head to toe in black business suits and hats. They are described as having one goal: to convince people to forget what they have seen and live with peace of mind. Vladimir was on a long-distance train journey and had been talking to fellow travellers about his UFO sightings when a tall black-suited man somehow entered his compartment. The man's strange metallic voice, as he referred to Vladimir's stories, scared the other passengers before he literally vanished. After that, Vladimir did not discuss his experiences of aliens with any but a close-knit circle. Men in black often cause people to become even more fearful, so that one Kaliningrad woman's experience of a helpful man in black is extremely rare. Years after Vladimir's train journey, he was the editor of a scientific educational journal when he received a letter from a woman living in Kaliningrad. She had witnessed multiple UFOs over her many years and wished to go public with her experiences. She compiled all her accounts, which she sent to Vladimir by post. However, her follow-up letter to him was the most interesting. When posting his letter, she had been upset to hear that the price of envelopes had risen and was charged 13 rubles and 60 kopecks to send 2 letters. The cost meant that she would have to go without a meal. On her way home, a tall young man dressed in black approached her in a friendly manner and asked if he could give her some money. The man was so polite and pleasant that she accepted the money. After he had walked away, she realized that he had given her exactly 13 rubles and 60 kopecks, the cost of her envelopes. Alien healing. In 1976, a man called Vladimir S. was sent by his family to the remote village of Molyobka in the Perm region in Ural, where non-traditional healers were known to live and practice. The region has since gained a reputation for paranormal activities and UFO sightings. In the 1990s, Molyobka became a site frequented by UFO seekers due to reported occurrences taking place in the so-called Molyobka Triangle. At the time of his visit, 18-year-old Vladimir was in search of a cure for back injuries, which he had sustained in a work-related accident. His injuries were so debilitating that he had to walk with a cane. He was camping with some other people along the river Chosovaya when, in the middle of the night, he got up to relieve himself. He was amazed to see a huge luminous egg-shaped object rise from the river and then hover in front of him. The craft radiated a strong heat, and through a window Vladimir could see a humanoid with long hair. He was shocked when instantaneously a green beam of light shot out from the top of the craft and struck him on the face, causing temporary blindness. When Vladimir could see again, the UFO was moving away and off in the distance. Incredibly, after this encounter, he recovered completely from his injuries and no longer needed a walking stick. Paranormal researcher Preston Dennett described this account in his book, The Healing Power of UFOs, as well as revealing another strange and therapeutic onboard encounter in the Russian wilderness. In June 1997, two anonymous witnesses were on a hiking and fishing trip in a rural area outside of Borovye-Chelyabinsk, Agan in the Ural Mountains region. The two friends saw an egg-shaped object landing in a field, and one of the men approached it. He suddenly found himself inside the UFO and holding a long conversation with tall humanoids. The beings informed him that there is no disease on their planet and that they live an average of 500 years. At one point, the man asked if they could help him with his injured leg. In the past, he had sustained a knee injury which had never healed. One of the ETs replied, "If you like, we will help you," and touched a device which seemed to summon 3 robotic-type creatures into the room. They were carrying various instruments, and the man's seat transformed into an examination table. He related that he was undressed, and then one of the aliens poured a greenish foam on his injured knee. The foam then hardened and formed into a kind of cast. The man couldn't remember what happened next, but when he regained awareness, he was now fully dressed again and sitting back in the chair. When he touched his leg, he felt no pain, and his knee was flexible. The alien who had treated him told him that they had corrected his leg and also purified him of kidney stones. The man said that he had never had any kidney pain, but the ET said, "You would have become sick." The man finally exited the craft after what had seemed like about 15 minutes. However, his friend, who was now frantic, said that he had been absent for much longer. The last thing the witness could remember was approaching the craft, and his memory of the onboard encounter did not surface for a year. However, he did immediately notice that his leg was healed, showing an unexplained pink scar. He attended his doctor, who checked his knee and confirmed that it was healed. Es Clemenco. A chilling abduction account came to light, which was documented by Svetlana Anina in her book The Secret Doctrine. In 1989, in Khabarovsk, in Far East Russia, lived a local resident who was a scientist named Es Clemenco. The man served as a research worker at a secret military scientific institute. He reported being abducted by a group of humanoids and taken on board their spacecraft. He described the beings as having large hairless heads, round eyes, and flattened ears that curled back over their skulls. Clemenco claimed that he had been taken to a large underground base on the moon. Bizarrely, there he claimed to have encountered dozens of terrestrial scientists, that is from planet Earth, but now working inside a multitude of laboratories housed inside this base. All of the scientists had apparently been abducted from Earth during different time periods. The humanoids invited Clemenco to also work for them, which would have also involved being stationed on the underground moon base. They somehow showed him a vision of a future car accident in which his wife and children would be killed, and he himself would sustain severe concussion and many fractured bones. The witness stated that he refused to work with the aliens, after which, reportedly, their tragic vision of his future did come true. Verhania Lemezi. Astonishing accounts have come to light involving a whole village of witnesses to an influx of extraterrestrial visitors. In early 1989, a tiny remote township located amid mountains and forests of the southern Urals in the Bashkortostan Republic of Russia began to report the strange sightings. Numerous residents had started encountering humanoid beings in the nearby forest, with locals becoming afraid to venture there. These encounters were to last for about a year. There were multiple landings of ellipse-shaped objects which were crewed by the humanoids witnessed in the forest. The beings were described as about 4 to 5 metres tall, and there were also smaller entities who never attempted contact with the locals. The taller ETs communicated telepathically with the local people on several occasions. They were described as being similar to humans, and it seemed that the locals were able to understand them. However, during these encounters, the witnesses experienced extreme fear as they felt as if they were standing under high-voltage electric power lines, so were perhaps undergoing electromagnetic effects. The humanoids asked some of the locals where they were able to obtain enkerterm, which seemed to be a metal of supposed high durability. The stunned villagers had naturally never heard of that particular metal. The aliens also asked some strange questions, such as what trajectory should we use to reach Sweden or Switzerland? The witnesses also observed that their watches would stop functioning while they were in the forest, and that radios and tape recorders also ceased to operate in anomalous areas. Some also sensed a powerful magnetic force attached to certain areas. During the night, they would observe triangular-shaped objects which projected beams of light over the forest, and also strange columns of light. People would also hear unexplained sounds. On one occasion, a witness observed a rectangular-shaped screen floating in the air and viewed images on it as in a large outdoor cinema. The screen displayed vivid colours which the witness had never before seen in his life. He said he felt cold while watching the screen. At this time, the village was visited by a group of physicists wanting to investigate the phenomena, but bizarrely, most became ill and left the town. The local people also noticed a strange alien contraption which resembled a submarine. The mechanism appeared and then disappeared into a pond near the village, as if moving underwater and underground. Witnesses stated that the water in the pond changed its composition and became just like liquid paraffin. During the year, long appearances of the aliens and the UFOs, there were repeated power outages in the town, and television sets also malfunctioned regularly. Sometimes locals also observed strange geometrical figures in the air, which apparently created an unexplained sleepiness among the witnesses. Generally, it was believed that these activities were related to a possible underground base located near the village. Kirsan Ilyumzhinov. As a former president of the Republic of Kalmykia in the Russian Federation from 1993 to 2010, as well as of FIDE, the chess international governing body, for over 2 decades, Ilyumzhinov was reluctant to disclose his astonishing UFO experience for many years. His encounter has 3 witnesses, being his chief of staff, his driver and a minister, who all confirmed that Kirsan had mysteriously vanished from his locked, guarded flat for about an hour that morning, and then suddenly walked out from a bedroom they had already searched. On the evening of Saturday, September 18th, 1997, Kirsan was in his apartment on Leontievsky Lane, Moscow, having attended some meetings in Moscow with plans to return to Kalmykia the following day. Kirsan related that he had fallen asleep when he sensed that his balcony had opened and someone was calling him. He went to the window and saw something like a transparent glowing tunnel. Being a curious risk-taker, he entered the strange corridor and found himself in a huge space. There he observed many tall people, or perhaps humanoid beings, who were wearing yellow spacesuits and gave him a spacesuit to wear. Sensing Kirsan was experiencing a lack of air, one of these beings indicated that the oxygen supply could be regulated by turning a dial on his chest. This enabled him to breathe easily again, while noticing that the air even smelled fresh like a sea or forest. Then followed what Kirsan called an excursion in their ship, the beings having promised to return him to where he had started. Their journey included landing on one of their planets and picking up pieces of equipment they needed. Intriguingly, Kirsan realised that he was speaking, but they were not. Their communication was telepathic. Kirsan asked to be shown around their interplanetary spaceship, which spanned over a vast area, like several football fields in size. One of the aliens led him to a large porthole window, as he realised that the craft wasn't just hovering over Moscow, but seemed to move freely, shifting through different times, spaces and dimensions. He said that no one paid attention to him, as everyone seemed busy with their own tasks. The crew were walking around, while in the background something was flickering, like screens or glass sheets, showing different colours and images. Kirsan asked the beings if they would agree to appear on our television channels and declare their presence, but they replied that it was still early and that humans had not yet reached the level in our civilization's development for them to communicate with us. The aliens' overriding message to Kirsan was that every creature living in the universe has to go through certain stages, and humans still destroy each other. They claimed to have created us, given us beautiful land, rivers, lakes and seas, which we now pollute with industrial waste, burning and forest destruction. They told Kirsan that currently there were over 117 armed conflicts happening around our world, calling us a beautiful species with 2 arms, 2 legs and a head on our shoulders, yet directing all our science and efforts towards inventing weapons to kill each other as much as we can. They said whether bacterial, chemical, atomic or neutron weapons, we are always coming up with ways to kill more people. They said, just imagine if we announce on your television that we have been here for a long time, in fact millennia, millions of years, watching, and not just us but others too. Kirsan also believes that the aliens have imparted technology, often centuries in advance of human capability, to assist us in areas like irrigation, mining and manufacturing. He claims that many other politicians and national leaders have had contact with extraterrestrials, and that a critical mass of awareness is building, but the time has not yet come for full disclosure. Although refusing to give any more detailed information about the identity or origins of the beings he met, nearly 30 years later, Kirsan still carries a feeling of joy that he has met them